We are dropping straight into the political slaughterhouse. In this explainer, we're breaking down an analysis that argues Donald Trump is demanding the constitutionally illegal impeachment of Hakeem Jeffries. Think about that for a second. A president commanding a massive populist movement is calling for the removal of the highest-ranking Democrat in the House. The source material frames this as a breathtaking escalation. It's not just politics, it's depicted as a direct structural assault on the very integrity of the American government. So you might be wondering, why demand an illegal impeachment? I mean, the Constitution absolutely doesn't allow for members of Congress to be impeached. Well, the analysis asks exactly that, and the answer is chilling. Because in a systemic crisis, the law simply doesn't matter. Power matters. The text suggests that in this high-stakes theater of modern political warfare, the actual reality of the law, it matters significantly less than the crushing, overwhelming weight of the accusation itself. Now, when Donald Trump brands Hakeem Jeffries a low IQ individual, the source explicitly warns us, do not mistake this for a simple schoolyard insult. It's not just a gaffe. It is framed as a ritualistic execution of credibility. The document describes this tactic as a highly calculated signal to his base. It sends the message that the opposition isn't just biologically inferior, but intellectually incapable, and therefore completely unfit for the protection of the law. The source calls this a fully deployed psychological siege engine. It's literally a tactical strike designed to lobotomize self-confidence. The strategy, according to the breakdown, forces the entire Democratic Party to look weak, pathetic, and intellectually bankrupt to a public that's being completely gaslit. It's built to crush their effrontery to even whisper against the MAGA throne. It ensures they constantly second-guess their own voice. Section 1. Mearsheimer and Offensive Realism. Okay, let's dive into this. To truly understand the cold, calculating theoretical framework driving this political warfare, the source insists we can't look through the lens of justice or fairness. We have to look at the mechanics of power. The political scientist John Mearsheimer teaches us the brutal truth of offensive realism. In political anarchy, there is no higher authority coming to save you. There are no friends. There are only targets. Power is the absolute only currency preventing your total liquidation. The text argues that Donald Trump is operating exactly within this ruthless domestic anarchy to completely bankrupt Hakeem Jeffries' influence. He's maximizing his own power until the opposition literally loses the courage to stand against him. And the source links this power maximization straight back to an ancient weapon, infamia. In Rome, proving a rival infamous or unfit was a tool used to strip them of their rights and their basic humanity. By attacking Jeffries' intelligence, the analysis notes, it forces the opponent into a corner. They have to constantly defend their very right to exist, entirely draining the energy they desperately need to mount any real counterattack. Section 2, the current political battlefield. But Hakeem Jeffries, according to the breakdown, is shifting to the counteroffensive. He is depicted as absolutely refusing to play the victim against the MAGA throne. Instead, he's standing in the wreckage, exposing what he calls Jeffries' derangement syndrome and firing right back at the administration's actions. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact receipts Jeffries is exposing. The reality, as he outlines it, includes disastrous legislative failures regarding ICE funding. It highlights illegal gerrymandering schemes operating in Virginia and Florida. He points out the Secretary of Energy quietly admitting that gas prices will stay high. Jeffries also highlights billions being spent on what he calls a reckless war of choice, dropping bombs overseas, all while the administration obsesses over a $400 million White House ballroom. Everyday Americans are drowning in utility bills and tariffs, and the analysis shows Jeffries laying out the very real, exact cost of this leadership. The source frames this entire situation as a zero-sum game of survival against what it labels Republican extremists. Jeffries is depicted as fighting a massive battle on multiple fronts. He's holding crucial ground in California, Texas, Utah, and New Hampshire. According to the text, he is fighting tooth and nail to protect the Constitution and defend the legitimacy of the Supreme Court, while simultaneously battling for everyday Americans who desperately need nutritional assistance and healthcare. Which brings the analysis directly to the fake impeachment trap. The sheer genius of this Mearsheimer-style power play is exhaustion. You just exhaust the enemy so completely that they cannot attack your failures. The source points out that while Hakeem Jeffries is bogged down, forced to explain to the public that impeachment simply doesn't apply to Congress, Donald Trump doesn't even care. He's already moved on to the next attack. It keeps the opposition entirely permanently on the defensive. Section 3, History's Graveyard of Republics. We are opening a genuinely terrifying door here in this explainer. The text asserts that history is not a teacher. It's a graveyard of republics that thought they were special. When you witness a leader weaponize the very concept of intelligence to dismantle a rival, the author warns you, you must look at the wreckage of the past to see exactly where this leads. The text draws a direct, striking parallel to the final century of the Roman Republic, where two massive factions collided in a battle for survival. You had the Optimates, the defenders of the elite establishment, the Supreme Court, and the Constitution. This is exactly the role the source says Hakeem Jeffries is forced to play today. And against them, the populares, who used the will of the people to bypass institutions entirely. The analysis argues Donald Trump operates as a classic popularis. He acts much like Sulla or Julius Caesar, openly mocking the establishment as weak and totally disconnected. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the precise, chilling parallel it draws to the 1850s United States. Long before the Civil War, the House and Senate were paralyzed by total psychological dominance. The source explains that pro-slavery extremists realized a dark truth. If you make your opponent feel fanatical or intellectually weak, you control the entire system. Southern elites, guys like Andrew Butler and Preston Brooks, intellectually bullied Northern abolitionists. They viewed them as total inferiors who completely lacked the intelligence to govern. And the source outlines a truly terrifying precedent here. When one side decides the other is quite literally too stupid to exist, insults rapidly manifest into physical violence. Look at the timeline. It started in the early 1850s with mere rhetorical insults. By the mid-1850s, it escalated into the total psychological isolation of Northern politicians. By 1855, they weaponized removal and institutional tricks to expel rivals simply for speaking out loud. And then, in 1856, Preston Brooks walked right into the chamber and beat Charles Sumner nearly to death on the Senate floor. The bridge from words to violence, it's incredibly short. Section 4. The systemic breaking point. The author is crystal clear on this. We are currently in the rhetorical phase of a systemic collapse. The guardrails are failing. The insults are escalating daily. The text heavily emphasizes that history shows us exactly what happens when the rhetoric of stupid versus smart takes over. The law rapidly stops being a shield and instead becomes a weapon of the smart. The analysis warns that the upcoming midterms are not just another election. They are a high-stakes collision of two totally irreconcilable versions of reality. If the public actually accepts that the opposition is intellectually inferior, the effrontery to stand against a leader just disappears. The source states the opposition simply becomes bugs in the system that need to be cleared out, and the law, it simply stops protecting them altogether. So the crucial point is this warning from offensive realism. There is no peaceful coexistence. There is only the heir and the challenger. According to the text, Donald Trump sees Hakeem Jeffries as a biological obstacle to total hegemony. The article grimly concludes that the guardrails of the Republic are completely gone. The challenger will use absolutely every tool, every label, and every single exhaustion tactic in the book to ensure absolute dominance. Ultimately, the question isn't whether one side is smart or stupid. The question is this: will you be so entertained by the insult that you don't notice the Republic being dismantled right in front of your eyes? When the law is openly used to punish intelligence, the game has fundamentally changed. So, looking at the wreckage of the past, which of these historical paths do you think we're already walking?